Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Todd and Shane's Cloudy Podcast number 384, recorded live Wednesday, April 11th, 2018. I am your host, Todd Clint.
And I am your better-looking host, Shane Young.
Oh, that is terrible. So that makes me think. So the next up in the show notes is production. If you are showing up better looking than I am, it's all done in post. It's all post production. You know, adding a little extra shine to my forehead. You know, making your voice sound a little deeper than the squeaky tenor that we're used to.
There's no fixing my voice. I'm sorry. I'm certain most people don't listen to our podcast just because of my voice. And
That's probably true.
I just can't. It's the only one I got. So
yep.
Sorry.
Ray Romano's podcast was really good until he brought that squeaky guy in, and now I don't. That's probably.
Yep.
That is probably good. So for production, I was a little behind for a couple of reasons, but I'm all caught up. I put out a podcast Monday. I put out a podcast yesterday. I might, just to see what I can do, I might try to get this one out today so I can do it in 3 days in a row. So part of that is I keep automating little steps, and I cleaned up another step yesterday. So that will be good. But all caught up. So if you're following us on YouTube or RSS or whatever, you should have all the stuff. You can listen to this one without listening to 382 and 383. This doesn't spoil either of those for you. We don't give away the endings to 382 or 383 in this one, so you're good to go.
We are so thoughtful that way.
Another thing that I did is I changed our logo on YouTube.
Oh.
So the logo that was there is one that had been there for a couple of years of my smiling face, got the pearlies, had my good side and everything. But I changed it to a picture of you and I, and it is like the blue background from the intro to the video podcast, and it's got that stuff. I kind of took that and shrunk it down. I would like to say that I did that for the viewers or to get your face in there because your face isn't in there. But really the reason that I did it is because in YouTube I've got multiple accounts. And the pictures were very similar, and I couldn't tell them apart. So I gave the podcast a kind of very distinctive looking logo, and so
I 100% get that. I have been there, done that, got that T-shirt too.
As with most things I do for other people, it's mostly for me. But that is that is out there too. So I've had a busy week already, and it's only Wednesday morning.
Yeah, that reminds me. I was listening to one of the Freakonomics replays, and Stephen Gubner was like, when he wanted to change careers. He's like, maybe I'll go into financial planning. Nope, that's too much talking about other people. Maybe I'll go into psychology. Nope, too much about other people. He wanted something that was about him. I was like, the fact that you can admit that's pretty cool.
Well, and the first thing he wanted to be was a rock star. I wanted to be a rock star, but that wasn't going to work out. And then I was going to be, he's hysterical. Yeah, I'd love to just hang out with that guy, and yeah, that would be fun.
No, it's such a weird world, right? I mean, there's so many economists now that I'm like, I don't want to hang out with you. Like, what is wrong with me? Economists are stupid.
Yep, and I think that was at the beginning of his Satya Nadella interview. It was one of the CEO interviews, one of the full-length CEO interviews when he talked about that, I think. But yeah, it's good stuff. So speaking of jobs, anything new going on with you? What have you been busy the last couple of weeks? I mean, what's up with Shane?
So I didn't have enough companies going. I wasn't really doing much with my time. I just had
the Bold Zebras thing and the college professor thing, the male escort thing, and now you're like, I got 7 minutes free every day.
Yeah. So what do I do with those 7 minutes? So turns out that I launched another company because let's face it, we all miss SharePoint 911. That was like the highlight of a lot of our lives. There's this golden age.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't bring SharePoint 911 back. It's trapped in the corporate overlord now and will never be free.
Your lawyers would ask you to not comment on that any further.
Thank you, lawyers. But so what I did is the next best thing. I said, well, what product do I love even more than SharePoint? And it's called PowerApps. So now we have PowerApps 911. Woohoo!
So tell the listeners a little bit, and that was the thing, if it's not clear already, that was the thing that you've been talking about the last 2 or 3 weeks. It was over your shoulder, but you kept pointing at the wrong shoulder. But
I've gotten it
there
right
you go.
Twice today.
So that beating your previous record of 0. So that's the thing. So tell the listeners a little bit about what you're doing there at PowerApps 911.
So we got the old lawyers won't let me say it. I got the old playbook out, and
I'll beep that out, Dory. Yeah.
Said how did I do this last time? And we're going to do the same exact thing again, right? So it turns out that where the PowerApps ecosystem is right now is people are like, man, I just need 15 minutes or an hour or 10 hours of help to get this one app either, like literally a guy that works for one of the world's one of the largest car manufacturers. You can bleep that out too.
Gotcha.
He said, hey, I just need to fix this one drop down. So I hopped on with him. 15 minutes later, his problem was fixed. And so, that was where SharePoint 911 came from, was just helping people get that one problem fixed. And so with PowerApps 911, we're doing that for people. I'll hop on, I'll do a screen share with you, we'll fix your app. It turns out that a lot of these people, instead of just fixing their app, they want me to build their app. Mm-hmm. But building an app isn't hundreds or thousands of hours of work. Every app so far has been done in less than 10 hours. It's
wow.
And a lot of that, though, right? I don't want to undersell or oversell anything. What it is most of these people just want an app that works and does its thing, right? They don't need it to be flashy. They don't need slide-in menus. They don't need animations. They're like, I need it to collect these 3 pieces of data and write it back to this data source. That's it. And so that's what we're popping out. And it's changing the way these companies are working. And it's like I said, 10 hours.
Yeah, and the stuff is so easy to create and so easy to use. Shane and I were talking a little bit before the show about now how I'm starting to see everything as a Power App. And I gave an example of a thing. And there's just been like 3 or 4 times in the last week where there's been some workflow where I've needed to gather information or present specific information. And I'm like, that is a Power App. I need to just write that as a Power App because it is just that easy. So if somebody is curious about Power Apps or if they already know about Power Apps, but they want to talk to you a little bit, how can they get a hold of you? What can they do?
PowerApps911.com, right?
Brilliant.
I know. I just didn't want to mess around. I didn't need any more, bold zebras or fuzzy cows or any of that. So we went with just a straight up PowerApps 911 name.
Excellent.
So yeah, I'm excited, right? Because like I said, we all loved that last company. We all loved that, just this idea that, we didn't do a bunch of craziness, weren't a bunch of contracting. We just got in and helped people and fixed a business problem, and we all went about our day. And so we're going to try and do that again.
Yeah, well, it's very exciting. And I think you're right. You hit it at exactly the right time, kind of like you did last time. There's just so much excitement about Power Apps and so many people wanting to do things. And it's just not as easy. It's not difficult, but it's not obvious how to do things. And so that little nudge in the right direction is something that all people need, or some people, that's all they need.
So I look forward to you learning more about the Power Apps, right? You got that interest. We got to find that thing that triggers you to sit down and write your first one. I'll be very excited to mock that. Help you with that.
Provide motivation and support, I think is what you meant to say.
That was it. Thank you.
Reminds us of the other conversation we had before the call.
Yes.
Shane does not coddle, is what he's coming up with. So I've been busy as well. So last Saturday, I was at SharePoint Saturday Omaha, and that was a great time. Drove up on Friday to Omaha. It's just like 2.5 hours from me. And again, if anybody from Omaha is listening, I apologize that I haven't been more active in your SharePoint community because you are just like a couple hours away. I just hop in my car, drive over there. So Friday night, they had the speaker dinner. David Peterson did a tremendous job of setting the conference up and all that. And he took us to a steakhouse. Apparently, it's the steakhouse that Warren Buffett hangs out at. As far as I know, Warren was not there because him and I are on a first-name basis. He was not there at the time, but that is his place to go. Had a delightful ribeye, and I was sitting next to David. So obviously, they took the orders there first. That's another thing. If you want to order first, if you're in a big group, sit next to the guy that's writing the check, and they pay good attention to that guy. So they had a menu, and they're like all the different steaks and then salads or chicken or whatever, and baked potatoes. And I don't mind baked potatoes, but David's like, hey, can I get hash browns with cheese instead? And the waitress is like, yeah. So I'm like, I want what he's having. I want the hash brown. So it was a big ribeye and hash browns with cheese. It was worth the whole weekend. It was good there. But Saturday morning was the actual conference. Great turnout, close to 200 people there.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a good turnout. I did the keynote at the conference, and it was in the business building for the college there, so it was a big auditorium, much like you'll probably be doing tonight. And I did it on what the state of SharePoint was. When David asked me to do the keynote, I said absolutely. Never turned down a microphone in a stage in my life. It's just never happened. But what is your group better than I do? What do they talk about? What are they interested in? And he's like, they're all just not sure where SharePoint's going and where Office 365 is going and what the state of their jobs are and all that. So I did a keynote on that. And it was interesting. Keynote writing and delivering is very different from the kind of sessions you and I normally do. The technical sessions, it's a completely different animal. And so I was really worried about it. Like I spent more time on this talk than I probably spent on the last 10 technical talks that I've done. Just, working on the flow. I practiced it. I did my timing. I did all the things that we used to do 10 or 12 years ago when we did sessions. I did it for this thing and I had it all timed out because I was really worried. But it went off really well and I got a lot of interesting, feedback and people seemed to like it. But to sum it all up and to save you all 60 minutes, basically, the state of SharePoint is great. There's, we had some dark times, 5 or 6 years ago, but there's so many things going on, PowerApps and all that. I'm glad I'm where I'm at. I'm not looking to learn how to weld or anything like that. It's a great place to be. So did the PowerShell session, Office 365 and PowerShell. Got some great feedback on that too. So it was just a great event. I was glad that I went. Thanks to the folks in Omaha for having me.
Very, very cool. And I mean, was it well received? Did you talk to people? I mean, because I know you and I kind of talked a little bit about the different ideas and ways for you to position it. Because it's a topic that comes up a lot with people, and
all the time.
And we keep having to remind them, that yes, there's still this SharePoint world, but where are you at with your PowerShell? Where are you at with your Azure Active Directory? Where and so I don't know, how did they seem to nod their heads and be like, this makes sense?
Well, and the way that I positioned that was. That is absolutely the case. There are all these periphery technologies that we need to get familiar with, but that is not anything new. That we as SharePoint folks have always had to do that, especially as administrators.
Yes.
You and I talk about Azure Active Directory and how great it is, but 10 years ago, you and I had to be experts on Windows Active Directory. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is not a new thing. It's all of those same technologies, just kind of shifting around a little bit. And so once you kind of frame it that way, that we've always been this, it's just not been as up, in our face. Yeah, everybody seemed excited about stuff, and there was. The curse of knowledge, the thing that gets me every time. I was talking about, different things that are in Office 365 that we can use. And there were a bunch of things that people there had not seen yet because everything moves so quickly. And you and I live this. Those people are normal people. They have normal lives. They don't, surround themselves with this. So, yeah, there was a lot of excitement about it. So I hope I get a couple people excited and going out and doing new things. Ollie asked in the chat room if I tried the Warren Buffett buffet. I did not.
Ollie's on fire this morning.
He is.
He had an extra cup of coffee. He's like, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, he's hitting it hard. Yeah. The dictionary attack meme was one of my favorites. That was.
I mean, that's about the only use for dictionary in my book. That and that stupid, what is the OLA guide you guys like to, what's the writer's guide, like the formal.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I know what you're talking about. Yep.
That thing.
Yep.
So anyway, so that's great. I mean, I think that, as much as I hate to say you did a good job, I feel like that's the message that we need to get out there more. So the message was good. How about that?
Yes. Much like, the old saying, don't shoot the messenger. You're going the other way. Don't compliment the messenger.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Don't compliment the messenger. Oh boy.
I mean, everyone else spends so much time, pushing you ahead, wanting selfies with you and telling you what a great job you do. I feel like it's my obligation to be like, Todd, you stink.
Well, and that's been a consistent theme for as long as we've known each other.
So on the SharePoint theme, oddly enough, I did a SharePoint Saturday Cincinnati yesterday, on Tuesday.
That might okay.
Yeah, I got nothing either.
Okay, all right.
I don't know why I forgot to promote this for the last month when I promoted things like Vancouver and Montreal. So I stink.
Yeah.
But same type of deal. We had a much smaller crowd. Probably because it was a Tuesday.
Well, people are very confused showing up for the SharePoint Saturday and Tuesday. Yeah.
But, I like to, I don't know if you've ever known this in my sessions, I like to do tangents and just talk about what I want instead of what the session's supposed to be.
That's come up, yeah.
Yeah. So I had the same talk with all the people in my PowerShell one. I was like, all right, stop. Let's talk about how important this is. Because 2/3 of the people in the room had never done PowerShell. And I'm like, no.
So the silver lining to that cloud is those people get to discover PowerShell for the first time and get to feel the bliss that is, oh my God, this is so cool. I'm a little jealous of that. I remember when that first happened to us.
After we did all the crying and cussing and yelling and screaming?
And the falling asleep and drooling on the Bruce Payette book. Yeah, it was. And I like to tell people we moved through the series, the stages of grief. That was exactly what it was. It was.
Yeah, I talked about exactly the same thing about falling asleep on the book. I was like, I got to page 1 and I woke up in a pile of drool. So anyway, so good stuff. Glad. That's a reminder though to all you listeners that you don't hear it on a regular basis, but embrace these other technologies.
Yeah, and embrace your community events. So one of the great things about the speaker dinner Friday night was there were some people that I knew there, speakers that I'd spoken with before and friends of mine and all that. But there were a bunch of people I didn't know, and there were at least 2 or 3 people that I know for sure had never spoken at an event like that before. And so SharePoint Saturday events and all that are great for that. And if you've never spoken at an event before, submit something. And I know you're saying, I got nothing to share. Don't be another victim of the curse of knowledge. You've got something that somebody else wants to hear about. So by all means, go do that. Speak at your user groups. Your user group coordinators always are looking for speakers. That is a universal thing. So go help those folks out.
Absolutely. All right. So bumping along in the topics, what do you got next?
Just a quick shout out. The April patches are out for all of our favorite SharePoint products, and all of my product pages are updated. So SharePoint 2010, SharePoint 2013, SharePoint 2016, all of those patches are out.
Wait, so you put out 2 podcasts and updated the patches site? I mean, did you hire do you have an assistant I don't know about? Is that what it is?
So the secret, and I told you my secret, I've started a OneNote, and I've got a OneNote called Daily, and it's got all the things that I need to do for a day, and it's got check marks so I can't forget to do things. And those were all of those things that I've accomplished so far this week were in OneNote as checkboxes.
Kudos. I'm very proud of you. All right. Yep. How about restoring your OneDrive?
Oh, so this is a fun one. I talked about this at SharePoint Saturday Omaha. So this is kind of one of those things. It's not necessarily new functionality, but it's packaged better. So the ransomware stuff has been out there been going strong for 2 or 3 years now. But this is this idea that you get a malicious process on your machine. That process goes through and encrypts all of the documents that you care about, all the files you care about, all of your Word documents and Excel documents and PowerPoints, all your JPEGs, your pings, all of the memes that Ali has on his desktop that he's waiting to drop out, they all get encrypted, every one of them. Okay. And then you get some nastygram that says, for a small fee, always in Bitcoin because that's anonymous, we will decrypt your files. For individuals, this is horrible. You lose all the pictures of your dog and all that kind of stuff. For businesses, it is catastrophic, and you don't have to try very hard to find examples of this. The most recent one was the city of Atlanta got hit at the beginning of March, and it shut the city down. Like cops couldn't put in arrest reports anymore. They had to do everything by paper because the computers were shut off. People couldn't get marriage licenses. I mean, because these people have learned not to pay the ransom because it encourages this, and so it has been incredibly destructive. And so the OneDrive folks, much like me, they envision a world where everything goes in OneDrive. Yep. So they envision a world where there's never the question, does this go in OneDrive? Should this go in OneDrive? The question is, where in OneDrive should this go? Should it be personal OneDrive? Should it be, team site, whatever? And so they've been working on this for a while, I assume, but they have this ability now for a OneDrive to roll back in time. So the idea being that if you happen to get one of these malicious processes and you're syncing a bunch of your OneDrive stuff and this malicious process goes through, encrypts everything, which syncs up to OneDrive, and all of your files are encrypted in OneDrive and on your desktop, you can go into OneDrive as a user. You don't even have to be like a tenant admin or anything, and look at the timeline for your OneDrive and say, roll me back to 6 o'clock last night. And it will go through in one screen and do all that. Now, in the background, what it's doing is it's using version history for files. It's undeleting things from the recycle bin, all things that were already there. The difference now is you don't have to go buy onesie twosie and pick them all out. You've got a little slider or a little drop down, and you just pick it and you go, and it does it all. Which is just amazing functionality because then you don't have to pay any of this ransom stuff. You just roll it back and you're good to go.
Yeah, and I'm 100% with you, right? Every single file that I have goes in OneDrive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all synced to my hard drive, so I don't really even notice that it goes in OneDrive. But that's how I keep it all, and it's a beautiful story, right? Because, like, for example, yesterday when I realized I had to do the presentation in an hour, I did it here on my fancy computer. I hit save in PowerPoint, went to wherever, opened up my Surface, got on the internet, it synced down. There was the file, right? I didn't think about it. Even cooler is Office now syncs all your stuff, so Office even knew the most recent file I'd worked on. I mean, It's
Yeah.
borderline magic.
Yeah, it's pretty slick. So this is just another reason to embrace OneDrive, and I'm guessing all of the other competing file systems have this. OneDrive does one thing that I don't know any other ones do. So you have to tell OneDrive what to roll back to. So you kind of have to know when the attack happened. OneDrive is also smart enough now that it looks heuristically at activity, and it will actually prompt you, like on your phone or whatever, and say, hey, it looks like your stuff's getting attacked by ransomware. You should log in and check out what's going on. So you'll actually get an alert on your phone that says bad stuff's happening. Check in and let us know what's going on.
Knock on wood, I haven't seen that message, thankfully. So,
well, and that's one of the things that I talked about it, and I don't remember if I mentioned this at the keynote or not, but I've been doing this computer thing for a while. I have never gotten a virus or malware or anything like that. I don't go to those places. I don't click those links. I did buy a device once that came preloaded with malware, but I don't think that counts.
Did somebody warn you about that?
No, it's never come up. It's never been discussed between you and I. Gotcha. But this malware stuff, as a guy who's never gotten infected with anything ever, it scares me. I mean, this stuff, it's bad news. So yeah, everything's in OneDrive. So check that out if you got OneDrive.
Yeah, the closest I also never had anything bad like that happen, but I did my first network admin job. One of the designers had clicked on, I don't remember the name of the virus anymore, but it was one of those first VBS files that went out and wiped out file shares. And
yeah.
I was like, I walked it back. I was like, dude, this all started right there. No one likes you, Doug.
Take that, Doug.
It was Doug. I remember his name, but I don't remember the name of the virus. It was one of those very first ones, that was just, whatever.
Way to go, Doug. More security type stuff. And I meant to talk about this a couple weeks ago, but I forgot. Microsoft publishes a link to all of the different network points that you need to be able to get to use all the different Office 365 services. Mm-hmm. So this is great if your security folks want to control egress traffic really well. And so they announced they're adding some categories and things like that. So this is one of those things you don't necessarily want to read through, but it's good to know that the document exists and just kind of give it a once over. So if your network folks are ever, looking to lock stuff down and all of a sudden Skype for Business doesn't work or something doesn't work, you can look in this document and it lists all the IP addresses, ports, all that stuff. So just a little tool to have in your tool belt.
Yeah. Well, that's, they've done a much better job of understanding that. And I'm still, so yesterday I started working with a new customer. And so he had to give me access to his Azure SQL environment so I could build, or his Azure SQL database so I could build a Power App for him. And so I went to Open Management Studio and it's like, hey, your username and password's good, but you're blocked at the firewall. Go add this IP address to the firewall, or I can do it for you. It blows my mind every time that comes up. I mean, I'm like, this is just so smart. Wasn't really hard to implement, but it's just genius that they thought through all that.
Yeah, the value is great. So check that out. Again, another thing I told the folks in Omaha is we're all security folks now. That's just with everything in the cloud, we're all security folks. And so this is just another thing to keep your eye on. The next topic is kind of a fun one, kind of a dumb one. I've been doing this Windows thing for a long time. I bought my first Windows machine in November of 1993, and it had Windows 3.1.1 on it. And I've been a Windows lover ever since. And I noticed this week some people were tweeting out a GitHub project that is the old Windows 3.1.1 file manager, but is a project that you can compile and run on Windows 10.
Aww.
They have open sourced file manager from Windows 3.1.1. And I just love that.
Who doesn't miss that, right? Do you remember the fun, right? You could have talked earlier about these people who just get to learn PowerShell again. I remember how amazing it was when I got that first Windows 3.1 computer and I started exploring, right? And we didn't right click.
Couldn't right click then.
But alt clicking or something like that, right? But digging through and just finding these little treasures and like no one else has ever seen this.
Yeah.
Oh my God, those are happy memories.
Yep. The win.ini file, the config.ini, being able to go in there and add stuff. Oh yeah, those are the days. So you can go out to GitHub, you can download this project. I don't remember if they've got a compiled version of it or not that you can pull down, but it is just so much fun, and it works on Windows 10, which is just insane. So think about how far file systems have gone since that thing came out. There were no long file names. Everything was 8.3.
Yep.
There were no files support for files larger than, geez, I don't even know back then, probably half. Oh, I don't even, a couple hundred. I don't know what the file size limit for FAT16 was back then.
256?
Something like that. I mean, it's just all of these changes that they had to work in, but they kept that interface, that loving, it's good stuff.
Oh man, these are happy thoughts now. Anyway, that's what I'm gonna teach my college kids tonight. We're gonna bust out a Windows 3.1 VM. I'm gonna be like, this is old school. It's gangsta.
Yep. So go out and grab that. The other thing that was fun is in there, they've got a link to the Wikipedia page for File Manager, and I'm like, oh, that is just a walk down. That was good stuff. So check that out. If you're old and crusty like Shane and I, check those out.
I'm not crusty. I showered last night.
Yeah, you're all clean.
I think.
So another gift that Microsoft has given us, and you and I have talked about this a couple of times, but the SharePoint migration tool got an update. Our buddy Bill Bear posted something about this a couple of days ago. This is a free tool that Microsoft gives to migrate you from on-prem resources to Office 365, SharePoint Online. Currently, it supports file shares. It supports SharePoint 2010 and SharePoint 2013. I believe it does not support SharePoint 2016 at the moment. But a free tool, very basic. I think it will only work for the most basic of things, but it's good to have there. For this version, it's been out for a while. I think they released it last year at Ignite, but it's got some new authentication options, ADFS and things like that. They used to allow you to take a CSV file to do bulk migrations to populate all the stuff. They now support that and a JSON file. I don't know what a JSON file is or how to make one of those, but it sounds very complicated. It sounds like just more brackets and
Yeah, one of us needs to figure out this JSON thing because I mean, like once a week it comes up. Someone's like, "Yeah, I had this field with some JSON data," and I'm like, "Right? Is he had the axe and the white mask? I think."
Yes, very scary. Yes. So speaking of Jason Voorhees from the Friday the 13th movies,
tangent.
You and I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Yes.
And one of them that I used to listen to a lot, though, it's kind of fallen out, is the Cracked podcast.
Okay.
So when you and I were kids, Cracked magazine was like Mad Magazine. Mm-hmm. They went under in 2001, but somebody else bought them, and they've got this great website, cracked.com, but they've got a great podcast. And one of the things that they would do was talk about movies and pop culture. And so they would talk about movies, like these horror movies, but from the bad guy's point of view. And it's just hysterical. So like they do the first few minutes of, I think it was Friday the 13th or Friday the 13th part 2. And like, all right, you're Jason. You need to get these guys. You're waiting at their house. You're going to ambush them. You're sitting behind the couch. It's all these just crazy things. You got to get back to the lake, except you can't drive a car. So I don't know how you do it. You got a bike. It was just all this. It was just hysterical.
Now, were you a Mad magazine or a Cracked magazine?
I don't know that I ever had an allegiance to either. I was kind of poor and couldn't afford either. So it was whatever I could get my hands on. Did you have a preference, an affinity?
So I preferred Mad, but IQ, I was also very poor. But so what I would do is when Mom would go to the grocery store, as I would go with her, and I would just go sit in the aisle and I would read the whole issue while she was going up and down the aisles. But yeah, very few of those ever actually went home with me.
Yeah. Yeah, the Cracked folks, they've got a bunch of great lists. They have figured the internet out. It's all, lists of stuff and very funny stuff. So cracked.com.
There you go.
But anyway, JSON files, yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll get there.
Oh yeah, we were talking about something before.
The migration tool, yeah. So the other thing, when you're doing this migration bit, Microsoft has a separate tool, though similar, called the SharePoint Migration Assessment Tool.
SMAT.
So it walks out SMAT to its friends. So now that we're talking SMAT, you use this tool to look at your on-prem stuff, the things that you're going to migrate in, and it will tell you where some of the problems are, files that are too large, stuff like that. So another free download from the folks at Microsoft. Go ahead and grab that. I don't know if you've picked up on this, but they really want you in Office 365. They would like to make that as easy for you as possible.
Yeah, and so yesterday I did a upgrade migration talk, and I kind of reinforced with people, there's really, in my book, there's two camps, right? There's either A, you've just accepted it, you're going to SharePoint Online, let's do it now. Or B, you're going to go there very soon. And so as you're migrating your on-prem to on-prem, all the decisions that you're making, you should be saying, what is this going to do when next year I realize I should have just went to SharePoint Online last year? And, for a lot of people, they're like, duh. But some people, that's kind of a light bulb moment. Like, that's probably right. And the example I used yesterday that really resonated with the audience because of where they were at was, like branding. We used to do 6-figure branding projects for people.
Yeah.
Like, here's the good news. When you go from 2010 to 2016, you get to start over with branding. There's no migration. There's no merging. You start over with a clean slate. And I couldn't get behind telling you to spend 6 figures or even 5 figures to brand your 2016 environment, because guess what? When you go to SharePoint Online, you're going to start over again. And in SharePoint Online, I'm going to beg you not to brand it at all, because it's just such a moving target. There is no reason, I do every time I have this conversation with customers, right? I fight with them like, look, we can put your logo in the corner. We can maybe change the default colors so they're not pink, they're brown. But that's about as far as you want to go. They're like, well, what if I do this stuff with JavaScript? I'm like, you can do it, but next week when Microsoft moves everything around, I don't want you to call me and yell at me that nothing works anymore.
Yeah, I don't want to say that Office 365 is openly hostile against branding. But if I had to comment on it somehow, that would be the phrase that would first jump to mind before I said it.
Yes.
It is, yeah. So I'm with you. Yeah. Anytime I talk to anybody who is looking to do an on-prem installation, the first thing I do is try to suss out whether they would be better on Office 365. And if they're not, then if we stay on-prem, yes, every decision is me looking at what the next decision to get him into Office 365 is. So.
Yeah. Just friendly advice again, right? You're going there, people. Just embrace it. The sooner, even if you can't embrace actually going there today, start making the decisions that will make that as easy as possible. Make future you, as Todd likes to say.
Exactly. Yes. Make future. I'm always looking out for future Todd. Though he's never done anything for me, I'm always looking out for future Todd. So speaking of the future, as you look into your snow globe, what do you see people doing in the future?
Is this where I tell you that I think PowerApps is the future? Is that the flag on the ground you want to hear me talk about?
Well, you hinted around. You've been very coy, very sly. Yeah.
I'm not very transparent. If I was really giving, yesterday someone else got to give the PowerApps talks, which made me very salty.
Aww.
But over half of the conference went to those, and almost none of them had done it yet. But they all kind of had that twinkle, what is this PowerApps thing? I feel like I need to know it. And I'm telling everyone, I think the adoption curve is going to be, we're kind of doing this a little small right now, but one day we're going to wake up and it's just going straight up, right? It's not going to be the Happy Bell. It is going to be, a SpaceX rocket going to Mars vertical at some point. And so,
yep.
The sooner that people can get on board and start figuring this out, more exciting.
And it's going to be a Falcon Heavy. Let's be clear.
Oh, well,
it's going to be the big one. Yeah. And I think part of that is people have seen, Forms is kind of scary. InfoPath was much used, but I don't think much loved. And then there was all those transitionary things. I think people were just afraid of having their hearts broken again.
Yeah. One of the things, I had a call Monday with a guy about PowerApps, and I guess once again, curse of knowledge, and he's showing me this mock-up. He'd spent all weekend doing these design drawings, this Power App he's going to build. And he got to screen 2. And screen 2 is here's the register button, or here's the put in your username and password. I'm like, you do know that Power Apps can't be used anonymously, right? That they're just for people in your tenants. And then he just got real quiet and sad. So just a reminder, people, that Power Apps, we love them, they're awesome, but they are confined to your Office 365 tenant right now. There's no guest access, there's no anonymous access, there's no sharing publicly. It's just for your tenant, and that's on purpose. And I think that's I don't know if that's the forever vision, but that is definitely the immediate vision. Is keeping it in that bubble so they can kind of make a lot of decisions around how things work, especially around when it comes to accessing your SQL or your SharePoint data or that type of thing. But just there you go. That was a curse of knowledge. I had no idea that someone thought they could make an anonymous Power App.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, that you and I were talking about. As soon as you start seeing Power Apps in action, everything becomes a Power App project, and you just want to use it for everything.
Yep.
And so I think it's indicative of that.
So last week, I popped off a few videos. The first one's interesting because it's almost contrary to what I just said, but a lot of people wanted a password screen in their Power App. So they wanted to have a Power App, publish it for everyone, but they wanted to have a button that only the manager could press, or that type of stuff, which is interesting request. Yeah. I got enough demand. I went ahead and made a video on that. So just putting a simple password interface. The fun thing about it though is I got to show off a couple other, tricks and stuff. So how you would handle that type of password stuff in SharePoint or in PowerApps. So I put that video out. I did another one on, so with PowerApps and SharePoint working together, which is the most common scenario I'm seeing right now. A lot of people that are smart enough to use PowerApps and start down that road were also the people that used lookup columns in their SharePoint list.
Yeah.
Pro tip. SharePoint lookup columns and PowerApps, they not best friends. They barely, they're like me and Todd, right? They get along when they have to, but he almost spit his drink out. Yes!
I nearly choked, yes. I didn't realize they were that adversarial. I had no idea it was that bad of a deal.
They are absolutely that adversarial. So anyway, what I did in this video is I showed you how to recreate lookup functionality without using the stupid lookup column, right? Because the more you know about SharePoint, the more you realize that lookup column it's wonky even at the SharePoint level. It's just kind of got a bunch of weird one-off stuff in it. So I've always been anti-lookup column. So I showed you a video how to make your own lookup column functionality. Yeah,
you're right. It is all those same people that are thinking that are using every piece of functionality. So that's good that you put that out there.
Yep. And then lastly, we did one on the PowerApps patch function. And so the patch function is just this PowerApps ability to edit a list item, but only edit like a single field or something, right? Usually when people think of that stuff, they're like adding a new record or deleting a record, but this is how you individually edit pieces. And so in that one, I also showed off some neat tricks around galleries. When you first learn PowerApps, you think of galleries as just a way to show all the, here's the list of all the data I have, and then click on one of those and then go do stuff.
Yeah.
In the more complex PowerApps that we're building for people, a lot of times we're taking that gallery and we're building the edit experience right there in the view instead of sending you somewhere else. So as you get more mature with PowerApps, you end up using galleries for a lot of stuff that you wouldn't think of when you first look at them. So this video kind of introduces you to some of those concepts of here's some different ways to do that.
Gotcha. Sounds like good stuff. So I know I have seen your piece of paper that has all the PowerApps videos that you would like to make on it.
Yes.
Well, I've seen both sides of that piece of paper to give people an idea what that looks like. But I think it's important for people to know that a lot of the stuff that Shane and I do is inspired by comments in that you guys leave and ideas that you put out there. So if you would like to see Shane hit an aspect of PowerApps that he hasn't already, or if you just want to add more work to him and more stress, leave comments on his YouTube channel or send him tweets and give him ideas, because there's a lot of times where the thing that you want to know how to do, he already knows how to do, or if he doesn't, it just gets that little curious, like, oh, that's a good question. The next PowerShell video I'm going to do is exactly that thing. Somebody's like, hey, I kind of want to do this thing, and I'm like, I want to know how to do that too. That sounds kind of fun. So by all means, leave comments. And then while you're there, you're already typing, your hand's already on the keyboard. Just go ahead and hit that thumbs up. Just go ahead and give it a little nudge there.
Oh, yeah, it is funny, right? You and I have that same personality. If you ask us the right question, we just go and do your work for you, right? We can't control ourselves. They're like, that's awesome. I've never thought of that. And I don't know I'll be right back.
Yep. My favorite story of that was back at Rackspace. I love this story. Somebody on the admin team said, hey, how do you do blah? And nobody responded. So like an hour later, he's like, what? What's going on? Why isn't anybody helping? And somebody else responded, in these cases, you should do what I do. Send out an email that says, this can't be done in PowerShell. And then just wait for Todd to send you back the PowerShell that proves you're wrong. And this is that same thing. You get that interest. And you're like, I wonder how I could do that in PowerShell. And off we go.
Yeah. Someone last week emailed me in. They're like, hey, I want to do a consulting engagement to solve this problem, but it was something. He wanted to get the serial number from the last 4 characters of the serial number from the BIOS. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. And so I literally just went and figured it out. And instead of taking his money, I just sent it back to him. Like, I needed to know. So here you go. Here's the answer. The
satisfaction was worth it. So yeah, leave comments. That helps. And that goes for all the people whose videos you listen to and all that. They love that kind of stuff. But let that go.
All right.
So the next one is kind of a fun one for me. So you and I talk a lot about podcasts and podcasts that we listen to and love and all that. I'm on Android and I use a podcast application called Pocket Casts. And I've used it forever. I don't know how many years I've been using it. And a couple of things that I really like about Pocket Casts It stores all the stuff in the cloud. So as I've gotten new phones, every time I get a new phone, I install Pocket Casts. I log into Pocket Casts, and it knows all the podcasts that I follow. It knows which ones I've listened to. It knows which ones I want to download, all that kind of stuff. Great. But it also has a web version. So if I'm listening to a podcast in the car when I'm coming home, I don't have to sit in the garage to see how it ends and potentially asphyxiate myself. I can come inside and go to the web player and finish up the podcast there. I do that all the time. But they announced here a week or so ago that they are going to make a Windows 10 desktop app version of that. So it will sync up with all that same stuff. So I can tell you that I have installed, I believe, 0 Windows apps on the Windows 10 boxes that I have. And I've got 4 within striking distance of me right now. But this might be the one. This might be the one that I install because it'll just be there. All my stuff's there. And I love Pocket Casts.
Well, that's pretty cool. And yeah, anything that makes it easy, right? Because that is one of the downsides. I listen to almost all my podcasts in the car. And they are, you're tied to the car. So I have to come back and hope that the car remembered where I was at in the episode. And yeah, it's that sounds like a pretty nice setup, quite frankly.
Yeah, and I've been that guy that, like, I'm going to a place and I won't get out of my car because I don't want to stop the podcast so this is so Pocket Cast is good. And when you and I have talked about this, we hit on different podcasts that we listen to, and we were thinking the other day, we're like, much like the Seinfeld show was a TV show about nothing. I almost wondered if people wouldn't love to hear about the podcasts that we talk about, like a podcast about podcasts. So that's something we've kicked that idea around.
Yeah, I mean, once again, you get people wonder what Todd and I do all day besides, post memes of kittens and things. But, we do. We have these conversations and, because we both listen to roughly the same podcast, and it's fun sometimes. Like, we both listened to Freakonomics, and in the one of the things they released recently was the interview of the unedited version of the interview between Stephen Gubner and Mark Zuckerberg, who's getting grilled by Congress right now. God bless his soul.
Oh.
But Todd and I both, we had this great conversation around our reactions to the way that he approached the interview and Mark's awesome Bill Gates-like knowledge to shut him up when he kind of got off tangent. And so we just kind of, after him and I talked about it for half an hour, like, this might be an interesting podcast, is to do a podcast about other podcasts. Clearly we're not going to be like, oh, well, this is what my research on, sociology and psychology said. But just that kind of, picking up on the other things, the things that we can add value around.
Yeah, and it's funny to me. So you and I are on some podcasting groups on Facebook and all that. And this idea to me legitimizes podcasts as another medium of entertainment, because for years we've had podcasts about Game of Thrones and Walking Dead and all these podcasts about some sort of entertainment. Podcasting itself has now risen to that level where we're thinking about having a podcast about other podcasts. That is how prevalent of an entertainment source that it is. So yeah, we let us know what you think about that idea. Leave a comment below or something. But it's something we talk about this stuff all the time. So if anybody wanted to hear it, we'd let them listen in.
There you go. All right, we're running out of time. What else we got there?
Speaking of Facebook,
so we had real quick. The PNP had an intermediate release. It just came out 6 hours ago or something. So if you're using the PNP PowerShell for your SharePoint environments, do an update on that. I didn't even go far enough to see why they had to have an intermediate release. I just saw the Flash, so I want to make sure you guys saw the Flash also.
Yep, grab that one.
And then, as Todd said, I missed his segue. My bad. Speaking of Facebook, don't take stupid internet quizzes. I don't know how this is a problem, but apparently now the bad guys have figured out they can put out an internet quiz like, how good is your memory? Do you remember what street you grew up on? Do you remember your first car? Do you remember what sport you played in high school? Why are they doing these quizzes? It's not to let you show them how smart you are. It's because those are common security password reset questions. So their idea, right, is to start building these databases that they can sell on the dark web to start to be able to like, oh, you want Todd? Yeah, well, we know now that he grew up on 123 Todd is my hero street, and that he, his favorite color is yellow, and his first car was a Trans Am, and so they can start to feed that beast, and that can be help them steal his identity down the road.
Yeah, and that's I never did any of those things. I would like to say it was because of the security aspect, but really it's just because I'm too lazy and I don't care. But there's a bunch of that. The other thing that's tangential to that is scary is using things like Facebook and Google for authentication to other sites. Or loading apps and giving those apps access to Facebook or whatever. It is all another part of the thing that Shane talked about, these people that are trying to gather as much information as they can about you. Sometimes it's for good. It's advertising. It's targeted advertising. Sometimes it's the bad guys, that's why Zuckerberg's talking to Congress right now. So be very judicious about that. What you feel. I assume every app on every social platform is just a malignant party trying to hurt me. So I load very few.
Yeah, when I can tell you, I did this years ago, and I don't even know why it triggered it, but like I have a standard fake birthday that I use for any of those sites that are like, what's your age? I use the same one over and over again. So, if I ever see someone wishing me happy birthday on that date, I'm like, yeah, you stole this from somewhere.
I know where that came from. Yeah, so just be smart.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's spend a couple of minutes talking about community events. This weekend is SharePoint Saturday Vancouver, April 14th. You can go up and see those guys. I've done SharePoint Saturday Vancouver, though it was 100 years ago. Vancouver's a great city. If you haven't gone to Vancouver, good place, good people. And then Cloud Friday and SharePoint Saturday Nashville. That is May 4th and May 5th. May 4th, I'm a little disappointed the new Star Wars movie Solo is not coming out on May the 4th.
It seems like a missed opportunity.
I don't know how that happened, but it's not. Maybe it's because that movie's not going to be very good. And anyway, so look out for those events. SharePoint Saturday Montreal, that is June 2nd. So go out there and see what's up there. I've never been to Montreal. I'd like to go there. And then finally, your friend and mine, Dan is going to be doing SharePoint Saturday in Charlotte. And so if you want to hang out with Dan Christian, and you guys can, if you go to SharePoint Saturday Charlotte, you and Dan Christian can talk about how great Shane and I are. But go hang out there. And that is August, don't tell me, 11th in Charlotte.
Yeah, there you go. And take some Legos with you, right? Dan's a big Lego guy as well. So he'll build your PowerApps to categorize your Lego using Flow and cognitive services and a bunch of really cool stuff. He's one of those guys that's taken PowerApps and pushed it to the nth degree already. I'm still just, here's how you connect a list to a dropdown.
And then Shane and I, like a month from now, a little over a month from now, Shane and I are going to be at SharePoint Conference North America. So you can go to SharePointConferenceNA.com and get signed up for that. May 21st through the 23rd. It's going to be a good time. I cannot wait for that. Now that SharePoint Saturday Omaha is in my rearview mirror, I can start working on these things. Super excited about all that. So if you haven't signed up yet, go out to SharePointConferenceNA.com, sign up. I hear the referral code Clint is all the rage right now. So go ahead and sign up for that. And while you're there, sign up for our Administrator Day Camp. They sent out the numbers yesterday. I think we're number 3. We're back to number 3 again for attendees. So we're gonna have to bring our A game. There's gonna be a lot of people in that room.
We should get a parade or something going. We need more. We need to get to number 1. I am number 1. I don't even know what rap song that is, but in my head it's playing now.
Yep, May 21st through 23rd. Shane and I will be doing the podcast live from the conference on the conference floor. They're going to have a podcasting booth, and then we'll have some kind of podcast get together. So plan for that. Reach out to us if you're going to be there, and we'll make sure we include you in the planning. And then in August, after we've all recovered from SharePoint Conference, SP TechCon in Boston, August 26th through the 29th.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to SP TechCon Boston. It's such a more intimate event. I love the people that put it on. It's just, it's much smaller scale. The other nice thing about that one will be is all that SharePoint 19 stuff that we'll learn about or we'll hear announced in May. It should be a little more tangible in August. So
yeah, and are you doing anything special at SP TechCon?
Am I doing a all-day PowerApps session to help you go from zero to hero?
That sounds glorious. So if you want to learn about PowerApps, Shane will be doing that, and that's on Sunday before SP TechCon. So you have to travel out on Saturday or super duper early on Sunday. But go ahead and do that.
You guys need to pressure Todd so he comes and joins me. He can, be the one that like carries my drinks from point A to point B and stuff while I'm doing that great session.
Yep, we should start a petition or something. So thanks everybody. Thanks for joining us. If you want to reach out to either one of us, you can hit me up. I'm Todd at toddclint.com or at toddclint on all of your favorite social media platforms. Shane?
Shane at PowerApps911.com. You're the first people to hear that email address.
That is awesome.
And then good old Shane's Cows, on the Twitter, all the other platforms. I don't know. I'm not like Todd. I do not have Shane's Cows locked down across the internet like Todd has Todd Clint.
Yes, my name is much easier to lock down than yours, and so I just grab it everywhere. Chat room will stick around for a few minutes. Those listening on the MP3 and all that, you can also go to YouTube, youtube.com/ToddClintNetcast or toddclint.com/podcast, and get all of your episodes from there. Woohoo. We'll see you all next week.